We got primetime games. Larry, whenever the primetime spotlight is on a football team, it always feels like, oh, it's a big deal to play Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night. And players get up for it. They like having the world's attention.
They do.
And teams and franchises get up for it, and fans get up for it, because this is going to be a huge, huge change the conversation couple of weeks for the 49ers on the national scale. They look good the next 2 weeks. I mean, you can forget about losing Trey Lance or the game in Chicago. It's going to be nothing but, oh, man, the Niners are a monster again if they win the next 2 games. If they split them, less than that. But one of them is going to happen on a Monday night or a Sunday night. So everybody's going to be, walking away with a definitive impression about the 49ers, whether that's right or wrong. Everyone is going to be making it. So just in terms of the media, the attention, and the feeling of these press conferences, they're going to go north or south based on these 2 weeks of football that the 49ers have coming up. And I'll just tell you, with the back and forth that I'm hearing between Kyle Shanahan and the media right now, it's way too early in the year for him to sound as frustrated as he really does. I mean,
a little defensive.
Very defensive. That's the thing. I think that he knows that everyone used to give him a wide berth and just assume that he had the answers. We got the questions, you got all the answers, Kyle. People aren't fishing, not as nearly as many people are fishing off the Kyle's got all the answers pier that used to be. Kyle, I don't want to say the emperor has no clothes.
The blooms off the rose, is
no
what
doubt.
You're saying?
No, I mean, it took this long, but the honeymoon's over. The honeymoon is over.
It's a weird situation, isn't it? He's 3 games under 500, and yet he might be the 3rd best coach in all of pro football. So it's like, how do you come to grips with that, right? I think it is an interesting time for the 49ers because they're number 1 in defense, and we don't know how good they are on defense. Because the Bears weren't that great, and Seattle's not that great. But if they shut down Denver this week and the Rams next week, and we're now going into week 5, and they're the number 1 defense, people might be asking how good, top to bottom on all 3 levels, is this 49er defense. Is it an all-timer? Is it a 2000 Ravens, 2002 Bucks, 85 Bears, 75 Steelers? Is it a historically great defense, or is it several, rungs beneath that?
Well, and how much credit could Kyle even take for that? I mean, I guess as general manager, he's picking some of the groceries, but there hasn't been a year where the Niners have had a successful year under Kyle where the defense has been outshined by this offense. I mean, Robert Saleh probably did a better job than Kyle Shanahan the year that the 49ers went to the Super Bowl. DeMeco Ryans is going to have more of his fingerprints over this defense than Kyle can claim. He is an offensive guy. That's his side of the ball. That's where he spends his time. He basically turns to his defensive coordinator and says, you figure that side of the ball out. I got you Chris Kasurek. I got you all these draft picks. Play them. Get success out of them because I gave them to you. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to run your defense. So Kyle's diminished. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And if the Niners let him go today, of course another NFL team would hire him immediately. I would then turn around and hire Sean Payton. That's the thing. One of the things that Kyle's always had in his sort of quiver of arrows that you could shoot about points, why you can't ever change the page from Kyle because there was no one better out there available. There is. Sean Payton. What if I told you it was...
He's got a Super Bowl. Is he an upgrade?
Let me just give you a scenario right now. Shanahan, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, all 3 of them gone next year, replaced by Lamar Jackson and Sean Payton. Would you be interested in that?
Wow. I mean, I gotta.
You never even thought of that, right?
I gotta put my arms around that one. I mean, I gotta see. I guess I'm a little bit of a doubter in Lamar because Lamar's best year was 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago he was worse, and then last year he was even worse than that. So I gotta kind of see him bounce back and see the running quarterback in year 4, 5, 6. I gotta see a little bit more there with Lamar, but I mean, it is interesting. He's a free agent, right? He's a free agent at the end of the year. They're going to do something with him. They're either going to sign. They haven't signed him yet in Baltimore. Kind of makes you wonder. But if this thing could go a lot of different directions. It absolutely could. And I do think that there's a lot of people out there that are looking at Kyle Shanahan and they're saying, yeah, he's better than Chip Kelly. Yeah, he's better than Jim Tom Sula. Heck, he's more of an offensive mastermind than Jim Harbaugh. But is he a head coach?
And if he's such an offensive mastermind, why does he got to run power belly dive to get 3 yards with his hand-selected future quarterback? That's what I don't understand.
It didn't seem so creative.
How come this team stalls in the red zone as frequently as it does if an offensive genius is seriously pulling the strings? How come every single time this team is running a play from inside the 5-yard line, it is 3 tight ends and Kyle Juszczyk? How come it's goal line formation by default and they're not spreading it out 5 across with only 5 yards to go for the end zone? I mean, there is no amount of Kyle Shanahan is coaching this team that has led to anything other than ultra-conservative style of football. And I'm not saying that's even a wrong thing, because conservative football is a lot of winning football. Play great defense, run the ball, dominate time of possession.
It's complementary football.
Yes. And I genuflect in the direction of all of those football truisms and cliches and, winning the line of scrimmage and all that stuff. It's all true. There's nothing about playing like that on its surface is wrong. But if that's all you got, like, you can't be a great musician if you only pluck one note. You just can't. And it feels like the 49ers have one note offensively that, if played correctly, might be enough of a note to strum through the entire season. But then you get into the postseason, and that's when the rest of people's playbooks start coming out. And it doesn't feel like Kyle does anything to really change what you would see in the postseason. As a matter of fact, he gets even more conservative. He'll run the ball even more in the postseason. Less chances to be dynamic or clever or creative appear for Kyle, I think, in the postseason. And maybe that's why he went about drafting Trey Lance, because he didn't want to play like that anymore. But here he is now, back to Jimmy Garoppolo. And as we were saying, Jimmy Garoppolo said something that, to me, you want to say you're looking too hard into a soundbite, Damon. You're trying to overinterpret what he's saying. Well, here is Jimmy Garoppolo, who was just talking about how play calling has not changed since he's been here.
I guess it's kind of, in 17, I was learning the offense. So Kyle would call some plays, and I wouldn't know exactly, how to read it, I guess. But you'd kind of figure it out as you went. And I don't know, just the more and more that you learn the offense and get the knowledge of the offense, I start to figure out what Kyle's thinking, and he, vice versa. But there's obviously just some back and forth between the play caller and quarterback.
Larry, you said earlier, really good teams come together when the players are kind of coaching themselves.
Well, they take ownership of it.
Right, they take ownership. That's better than coaching themselves, obviously. Do you think Kyle coaches ownership of his offense out of his quarterbacks? Do you think Kyle removes the benefit of, coach, these are my instincts, in the name of, this is my offense?
I think he plays to his players' strengths, and I don't think he thinks that Jimmy's strengths are throwing it deep down the field. I think Jimmy, you're going to see more underneath throws, and they're going to get run after the catch. And they're going to get a lot more run after the catch than like Trey would generate, because Jimmy is going to be accurate and hit those guys in stride underneath right now, where Trey was struggling hitting those guys in stride. So it's throw it short, but you're getting big plays run after the catch, where Trey, I think, was the kind of quarterback where he was going to buy more time in the pocket, escape the pocket, and then keep his eyes posted down the field, and then make big plays off script with the ball in the air. Now there's going to be less of that.
You talk about Kyle doubting the Garoppolo arm. Well, not according to this.
I've never not seen Jimmy throw the ball. I think Jimmy's one of the better throwers on this planet. So that's been one of his number one attributes. I thought Jimmy had his best year last year. Got surgery at the end of the year, and once his arm started healing up, which throwing on the side and stuff, it always looked good. Once we got him in with our team, which was right after the first preseason game, throwing him in with the scout team and stuff, looked like he always has.
He's talking about arm talent there.
Right, but why did you go about trying to get rid of and out of the business of one of the best arms on the planet then, Kyle? There's your follow-up question that would be asked in New York and Philadelphia and Chicago, where, there was media members who didn't want to make sure that their name wasn't removed off the free lunch list.
This comes down to something that I'm sure Baldy has talked about, Greg Cosell has talked about, that we've seen it now for a number of years. Garoppolo is not a great late in the down thrower. If you take away his first read, if you take away his second read, if you make him hold on to the ball, he starts to get, happy feet in the pocket, and he starts to fling it. He does have great ability to without stepping into his throws, he can flick it.
Quick release,
and he can flick it, and he can flick it with some good velocity. So that's the arm talent, but what's undeniable is that you're not seeing a lot of production from the quarterback late in the down. You're not seeing him escape the pocket and find a guy after he's held the ball and broken down the defense for 5 seconds. Where other quarterback, Russell Wilson does it at seemingly once a game when he plays the 49ers head-to-head. He breaks down the entire defense because he escapes contain, and he's got the ball for 7 seconds, and the defense is running for their lives.
Jimmy was asked, do you want to throw the ball downfield more?
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things that go with that, obviously. But, yeah, I love doing that stuff. In 17, there was a freedom where me, the receivers, tight ends, we had a good chemistry going. And when you get that with offensive skills in a quarterback, it makes for a tough offense.
When I got here, there was a freedom. 6 years in, I have less freedom in this offense than when I showed up and I didn't quite know which way to do it yet. That's what it sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo is saying. Like, my instincts were coached out of me. My desire to make the play that I think I see has been muted by a coach who basically, he whipped the wild horse out of me. He broke me in terms of, I'm not just going to run and let my mane all over the beach anymore. Like, I'm now a show pony. I'm going to do whatever he says to do in the race.
The assumption, though, is that Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to win because, Kyle Shanahan wants to win. So he's doing what he thinks is going to put Jimmy in the best position to succeed. Maybe that's all based on Kyle's reticence to throw it deep. Probably has a lot to do with, the number of times he's seen that game plan not work well.
Look, there's an awful lot of in-the-moment revisionist history happening here. Kyle Shanahan, I can tell you, conclusively does not believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the best arms on the planet. There's no way any head coach walks away from one of the best arms on the planet. So, that feels a little flowery based on the decisions that you've made in the past, Kyle.
He's trying to say to everybody that that Garoppolo has arm talent, that he can flick it, and he throws a really good ball.
Everyone in the NFL's got arm talent.
But he's
who's the weak-armed NFL quarterback? I'll wait.
I'm
not saying they've never existed, but right now in this league, who's the one guy where you're like, rag arm? He's not out there. He's not out there.
Yeah, you'd really have to hunt.
Yeah.
There are guys that don't have the Flacco
right,
arm.
There are some guys who are not howitzers,
right,
but they're all cannons.
Yeah. There's not a lot of weak arm guys. Why? Because if you can't make all the throws in the NFL, you typically don't get the gig.
Here is Kyle asked what he thought Jimmy Garoppolo meant by saying, I had more freedom, implying now less freedom.
You'd have to ask him what he meant by that. There was no difference in that game than every game, so you can ask him from that. It was probably just going in when the game plan's for someone else and just coming off and winging it and going with it. That's what I would guess, but sounds like it's a question for him.
I guess Eric Branch, who was asking the question to Kyle Shanahan, basically said, look, he's talking about a freedom that he felt kind of no longer feels. Any comment on that, Kyle?
No, I really don't know the quote that he said. I'm with Jimmy a lot, so nothing really surprises me. I get to talk to him every day. I hear your guys' huge interpretations of that quote. I can't interpret it. I interpret with my relationship with him every day, so just go ask him what he meant by it.
Okay. Can you facilitate that?
No, I'm not going to waste my time with that, but you can. I got some real stuff to do.
All right, so he's got bigger things to do, and I will say this, the 49ers have someone who's employed as a media liaison, and that person is not Kyle Shanahan. I'm not going to put that on him. But look, I think there's a little arrogance right there. I think there's a lot of arrogance right there, to be totally honest with you, and I think that him trying to say, I don't know how to interpret that, and everyone's trying to interpret it. I think it doesn't take much interpreting. It doesn't take much tea leaf reading to listen to what Garoppolo was saying. When I first got here and I didn't know any better and I didn't really know what Kyle wanted, I played some of my best football and let my instincts and just talented athletes sort of make decisions for me. I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
He told you right there what he thought. He said, I can't interpret it, and then he interpreted it. He really did. He said, I can't interpret that. And then he went on and basically said, well, maybe he came into a situation where the game plan was for somebody else.
No, that's not it, Kyle. That's definitely not it.
Well,
that isn't easy. I'm pretending I can't interpret it. You're interpreting the vacuum of the moment, not the overall breadth of the statement.
Let's just say this, Damon. Danny Gray was active this week. He's their deep threat. It makes sense that that with Gray active and with Trey in the lineup, that they were going to take more shots down the field. So that very well could have been part of the game plan. So when Trey went out and Jimmy comes in, they're still operating the game plan that they had worked on all week. And that game plan probably includes taking shots down the field to Danny Gray. And so maybe Jimmy was afforded a few more or a little bit more room to take those shots because he's operating the Trey game plan. That's what makes this next game so riveting, in my opinion, because now we're going to find out. Are we going to see more of the downfield plan? Is Garoppolo going to take more shots? They still drafted Danny Gray. They picked up Ray McCloud. Those are your home run hitters. Are they going to try to stretch the field now with Jimmy? Or was that Trey's plan, and now everything's going to be underneath? Everything's going to be throw short and lean on run after the catch. I think that's going to be one of the things to watch for Sunday night.
And one of the things we get to watch, which will make the Niners feel more like themselves, more of the 49er DNA is going to be out on that field. Not only Jimmy's return, but one of his favorite targets and his return as well. George Kittle is green light, ready to go in Denver. That's good news. Hey, diddle, diddle, George Kittle up the middle. That is a really good play that was not available to no matter who the quarterback was the first 2 weeks. They are a better football team with that man playing football. Kittle, how's it feel to be back?
Just had a breath of fresh air, honestly. It feels great to be back on the football field with the boys. I love our performance staff. They do a fantastic job getting us back together, but I'd be okay with not really seeing them for the rest of the season. Just really happy to be back out there, catching the football, actually getting to put pads on, hit people. It's fun.
Larry, I asked Kyle Juszczyk whether or not Kittle was back wearing his Jimmy Garoppolo beefcake T-shirts.
Right.
He said not yet, but it's probably coming at some point. Kittle asked what it meant to have our handsome Prince Eric back as the starting quarterback.
He's been here last 3 weeks, so he was in the building every single day of training camp, so it's not like it's new to anybody here. He's been around. He's been friendly to all the guys back then. When we re-signed him or restructured, I guess, that was fun just to have him in the locker room because, everyone loves Jimmy. Everyone has appreciation for Jimmy, what he's done. I think we're just all thankful that, given the circumstances, which are just absolutely horrendous and terrible, and we love Trey and very excited about what Trey has to bring. I think we were all just thankful that we had Jimmy there who knows our offense, knows the players in the huddle, and knows how to get the guys going. So I think we're just thankful that he's here, and also thankful that he has Jimmy's ready to roll, and you can feel that in the huddle, and you can appreciate that he's ready to go to work, and you feel that every day.
I'm so sorry that he didn't bring up the squareness of his jaw. That's usually one of his go-to talking points about his quarterback's attributes. But no, there's no doubt. Those two guys playing together again should spell better than what we've seen so far offensive football from the 49ers, especially in the middle of the field. And we know that Kyle loves attack in the middle of the field. Yeah. And it's where Jimmy's most comfortable passing.
Well, and the Niners now with the win last week, they're 7-9 in the 16 games that Kittle has missed. So they're under 500 when he's not out there. He's absolutely a key cog, and they're gonna use him. The thing about Kittle and Jimmy Ward is both these guys are so damn physical that they almost out-hit their bodies. And it's like it's not a coincidence that those two guys hit like trucks, and they're both not healthy to start this year. So that's, it's a great thing. We all love the woo-woo hit, but if it costs you games and it hurts your team, those are two really good football players, but they hit like trucks and they out-hit themselves.
You talk about better when they're playing. When Jimmy doesn't start, Kyle Shanahan is 8-29. When Jimmy Garoppolo does start, Kyle Shanahan is 31-14. I mean, those are overwhelming numbers. They truly are. For all the it ain't perfect, everyone insists on Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan always, they're always dancing under the cloud of it ain't perfect. But that's a pretty damn good return on it ain't perfect. 31-14 together. Just so you know that maybe Garoppolo wasn't the only one sort of taking veiled shots at the conservative approach of Kyle Shanahan. George Kittle, with a twinkle in his eye, obviously, said, I remember one game I was on pace to establish a new tight end single-game receiving record. And then that did not happen.
I think that one was just more fun so than anything because I literally wasn't covered for most of the game, and I got to experience that for the first and last time. Yeah. That was a really fun one. I'd say that's a top fiver for me. 85-yard touchdowns are pretty sick.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have that play in there somewhere.
He had like over 100 yards before half.
210 in the halftime, then 0 in the second half. Thanks, Kyle.
5 shy of the
Thanks,
record,
Kyle.
right?
4 shy, yeah.
Didn't they try to force feed you a couple times, or?
Once, and Kinder Corner ran the wrong route. Thanks, KB. Much love, man.
There you go. So 10 targets in the first half, 0 in the second. That feels like a coach who put away the playbook with a lead, didn't it?
But then
if Kyle's got a 10-point lead, you are running on first down, and I can promise you that.
Yeah, he dials it way, way down. Except in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, where they just kept throwing. And
that was Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator with the offensive play calls. But yeah, I mean, the 49, Kyle's game plan is run the ball, play action pass off of it. So
I mean, shouldn't all game plans be that? I mean, that's the thing. Are you that much of a genius if that's your game plan? Because what high school football coach isn't running those 2 game plans?
Yeah, but teams take shots down the field. Kyle doesn't want to take shots down the field as much, or at least with the personnel he hasn't taken those shots down the field.
Does Danny Gray change that?
I think he does. They didn't have a go-to guy last year. They didn't have a go pattern guy, a guy who takes the top off the defense, a guy who creates all the room. This organization,
it was supposed to be Goodwin.
It was supposed to be Goodwin.
He never was healthy enough, and unfortunately,
Ted Ginn. If you want to go far enough back in the Harbaugh regime, you got to have a vertical threat. Otherwise, the safeties all play leaning forward. If you got a vertical threat, they're kind of in a bail position.
Thank you for turning your hip right there.
You like that? I'll flip the hips here. I'll do it for you if you want.
Looking good. It's like lambada happening here in the studio. The forbidden dance with Larry Krueger.
Go forward, or you get in the trail position.